Paul mentions 10 sins in our letter to the Colossians. 10 sins. In there, he mentions one of them is porneia, which is translated in English into what's that? Into fornication. There we go. See, I couldn't think of that name. So the porneia is where we get the term for pornography. You can't take that with you. He mentions anger. Can't take that with you. He mentions slander. Can't take that with you. Malice. All of those sins, idolatry. All of those sins stay here. Greed is a part of the earth and a part of our earthly bodies. It's something that you can't take with you. So the good news is, where we're going, those things don't exist. That there's no slander, there's no lies, there's no deceit, no greed. Isn't that good news? Where we're heading to, those things don't exist. And so they are here to be left behind. And so Paul calls us to take those things of this world and to leave them with the world. But to think of the things in heaven, to think of the things of God. And those are the things that we need to set our minds onto. Paul does a great job setting up our lesson for this morning, for what Jesus has to say. Did any of you get a chill down your spine when you heard Jesus say, one's life does not consist of your possessions? Anybody get a chill down their spine when we hear about this wealthy man being called out by God saying, you fool, you can't take these things with you? When I was reading it, I got a chill down my spine. And it didn't help to have the psalm remind us of that. So in the psalm, if you want to look back on page 3, if you look at verse 6 and verse 7, the psalmist writes, they trust in their wealth and boast of great riches. Yet they cannot redeem themselves from death by paying a ransom to God. If you wonder where that phrase is, you can't buy your way into heaven, it's from Psalm 29. They cannot redeem themselves from death by paying a ransom to God. Redemption does not come easily, for no one can ever pay enough to live forever and never see the grave. Those who are wise must finally die, just like the foolish and senseless, leaving all their wealth behind. The grave is their eternal home where they will stay forever. They may name their estates after themselves, but their fame will not last. They will die just like animals. Chills you? Yes. One's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions, says Jesus. Your life does not consist of the things that you own. Your life is somewhere outside of that. And yet, our consumerist culture tries to tell us the opposite. In fact, they try to tell us that happiness exists in possessions. Happiness exists in those things that you can buy. And that you can actually build up a secure future for yourself. And Jesus reminds us that your life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. There have been many studies done, many empirical studies done, on people's happiness. It seems as if, at least in the western United States, in this area, we like to look at what happiness is. And the idea is that the more wealthy you are, the more happy you are. And study after study shows that that is just not true. That the top 20% of wage earners and the top 20% of those that earn the most in the United States are not the happiest. If you want to look for a group that has alcoholism, drug abuse, specifically prescription drug abuse, the ones that have more prescriptions for depression than any other group, look at the top 20% of those that own things in the United States. They're not the happiest people out there. Study after study is trying to show that happiness and wealth go hand in hand, and it's just not so. One thing they don't prepare for in sermon is when you're in seminaries, when your own child cries, that you have that parent's instinct of picking him up, and I can't. So that's very interesting. I didn't know. They didn't tell me that in seminary. When your own child cries, you can't pick him up. It's my job. So Go back to my. All right, so yeah, money doesn't equal happiness. So let's look at the gospel lesson. But before we do that, actually, I want to share a little story. In the Diocese of Olympia, which is Western Washington, where I grew up, we had a thing called the High School Youth Conference. And that's high school teens from all over Western Washington would convene 3 times a year on some poor, unsuspecting church. And we would get together and have a great weekend conference. And one of the hallmarks of this is that the various parish members, the people of the church, would take us teenagers home to their house, and they'd feed us Friday night, and they'd feed us Saturday night, and then get us hopefully something to eat Sunday morning. And it was a neat way to get to know other youth in the diocese, but you also got to see how other people lived. In my senior year, I learned a great lesson about the fact that money can't buy you happiness. In the second, because there's 3 of them, in the middle one, we were in Vancouver, Washington. Vancouver, Washington is just north of Portland, Oregon. And Vancouver is known as kind of a working town. It's where they do a lot of lumber and a lot of other agricultural stuff. And so the family that I was staying with, they had 6 or 8 of us teenagers. It was a small 3-bedroom house, and they brought home, I think it was 8 of us, as I recall. It's just a whole bunch, a whole bunch of teenagers invading their home. These folks had cars that you could hear them running down the road. They had an air leak and exhaust, and they didn't always run. We got to their house, and there was mold on the carpet where there was some water damage, and they couldn't afford to fix the roof. But they brought us all in, and they had 2 kids themselves. And so all of us were under their roof, and they made us pizza. And we sat around and we played games. They didn't have, fancy cable TV or anything. So we played games. We sang songs. We stayed up till midnight drinking soda, and it was great. It was a great time. And when I first got there, I was kind of put off by the cleanliness of the place. But as the days went on, Friday night and Saturday night, I didn't notice that. All I noticed was the love, and the love that they had for each other, and their openness to share with everyone else. It was a great time. The last high school youth conference I was a part of was in Magnolia in Seattle. Anybody know of Magnolia? If you happen to own Boeing, that's where you live. If your last name happens to be Weyerhaeuser or Nordstrom, that's where you live. Magnolia is a bluff that's kind of on the northwest side of Seattle, and there's one bridge to get there. And we always joke that at any time Magnolia residents could close the bridge and they'd be done with us. But that would be it. So it was a very wealthy place, a very wealthy church, nice, big, ornate, grand church, nothing like the working class church in Vancouver. So we arrived at this church, and they had so many parents to take home kids. We went off by 2s and sometimes by 3. That was it. I mean, there were so many people to care for us that we got divided out a lot. So I was picked up by one of the kids. It wasn't even by the father or the mother. One of the kids. I think she was 19. So she picked us up in a BMW, and we squeezed in, and we drove off to her house. House isn't road, castle, mansion. Those are the better words. Waterfront property with a 200-foot dock. That type of place. It was, I don't know how many stories. It was gigantic. In the living room, the ceilings were as high as this. And they had a gigantic 15-foot portrait of the mother of the house. It was an amazing place. They had those built-in Sub-Zero refrigerators. We couldn't even tell where they were. And, hungry teenagers were trying to find food. Like, where's the refrigerator? They told us there was food. But so we ended up eating, and this is ironic, frozen pizza and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. More frozen pizza than we could ever eat. But it was cold, it was cardboard, and it was stuck in your mouth. The parents left us a note saying that there was some fundraiser or something and that they wouldn't see us until Saturday night. And the kids all had plans and they took off. And so it was the 3 of us in this 10,000 square foot home with a waterfront property by ourselves. And all we did was we sat in front of the TV and ate frozen pizza. There was no community, there was no sharing. Saturday morning I got to meet the parents, and it was as cold as the pizza was. It was just kind of nice, say hello, ask them what they did, and they have a very well-known jam company. It's the last name. Smuckers is a weird name, but they have money. And then they had someone else who we didn't even know drive us to the back of the church. They didn't even bother. Saturday night we got home, no one was around, same deal. And then Sunday morning when they're making us breakfast, all they did was argue around the table. And it was all around a gas card for someone's BMW. There was no happiness, there wasn't love, there wasn't that sharing that we felt in Vancouver. And it really drove home to me the fact that money doesn't buy you happiness.